What I most like doing in life is following an unmapped path. I like spontaneity, and I like to just place myself in the lap of the gods, so to speak. I feel that I'm just on the verge of the next big thing, so there's no point turning back now because you want to know what's around the corner. I didn't learn how to paint. It was just there. I just very quickly developed a style, and perhaps there was a natural thing there. The first painting I painted was based on the landscape, and it featured a couple of young Aboriginal boys who were looking out over the land, wondering about where and how to embrace their Aboriginality. Having graduated at university in '94, and then I kind of bummed around for a couple of years and did odd jobs. So I went back to Penrith to work with the kids in the school, get a sense of community in the urban environment, and that's what started to fuel a lot of the ideas of what I'm painting about.
Adam being able to put this into a public context, I think that's a sort of huge contribution that Adam is making. The humour can actually break through a lot of barriers, and his style of art is sort of cheeky, popular, even maybe from sort of a magazine sort of culture.
I'm very proud to be celebrating my 10th solo exhibition with you tonight. And also very proud to have been invited by Steve and Rochelle here to give me the space and take me on board.
What did you think of that painting?
Everybody kept asking me what statement were you making, and I found myself standing there explaining.
The painting featured a stereotype of white middle class Australia. So it features this typical kind of fibro house which you see in certain areas in the suburbs, and the guy who's just finished mowing his lawn hosing down the driveway. But on the opposite side of the road was an Aboriginal youth who was on his hands and knees, and he was holding an empty glass of water.
Oh, with that one, I couldn't disagree. I didn't disagree with that one. I don't disagree with all of them, all of his paintings. Maybe 99%, but not all of them.
Well, not everybody agrees with my comments, and sometimes my comments are
Controversial?
Of course they're controversial.
I go to all of his exhibitions. That's, I think because I've got to, because Adam keeps telling me I've got to come, and so I go to his exhibitions. I know, I still enjoy his art, but some of the messages just leaves me a little bit wondering. That's why he's got a brain, and I've got a brain. He's got his thoughts, I've got my thoughts. So
all of a sudden, I think we need to now think about interest rates. Rather, we need to now think...
Did I hear the word interest rates? Did I hear the word interest rates, ladies and gentlemen? Ladies and gentlemen.
And what I'm about to do is to introduce you to John Howard, and he might say just a couple of words on what he thinks of my efforts here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am honoured to have been invited to launch this show this evening. I'm extremely impressed by young people like Adam. We go back a long way. He is participating in this society in a way that I deeply admire, and I regard his work as an inspiration to all Australians to see what we can do.
Now, just create raspberries like you do in Parliament question time. You know, just create raspberries like that.
Talking about.
That's the Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen. A round of applause for the Prime Minister.
I feel totally spiritually cleansed, ladies and gentlemen. Everything is washed away. I'm ready to apologise, do all sorts of things.
What do you think I am?
What do you think?
I know what I am.
What are you? Well, that's what she's asking you.
I'm Koori. And that's my life.
Well, see, I said I'm an Australian.
Hmm.
Then I'm Aboriginal. And everybody that comes to this country should be Australian. Doesn't matter what your religious beliefs or your culture or anything. If you want to come to this country, you're an Australian. So, yep, I'm an Australian. And proud of it. I'm Aboriginal. And I'm proud of that. There are things that you just can't change. And being what you were born is one of them. I mean, I don't hide the fact. All my friends know what I am, and they accept me for what I am. Same as I know what they are, and I accept them for what they are. I'm virtually in a cocoon. Because I go to work, I come home, I've got work to do in the house. I allow myself the luxury of a weekend to maybe go and have a beer with my mates. So this was a course that Adam took on his own. We sort of gave him the opportunities that we could, and it was all up to him, and he's excelled. He's done real well. So I was very happy. I was very sad to lose my wife. Unfortunately, these things happen.
Mum was one of the most loving people that I've ever had in my life, and I mean, in terms of the way she related to me and how she conveyed her love. That's my gorgeous mum and dad when they start going out with each other. So this is the modelling shot that Mum was selected for because of her eyes. She had, I mean, they're really made up there, but you can see her eyes. They look like Egyptian princess or something, you know. So I always remember Mum for being an incredibly hard worker, and she was a barmaid, and she worked in hotels, pubs. She met my father in a pub, and so she'd been in a pub all of the life that I knew her. So the good influences in my life have been definitely my mum, my grandmother, my immediate family, and especially Auntie Jean South, who was an Aboriginal mentor at the University of Western Sydney. If it wasn't for meeting her, then I probably wouldn't have been encouraged to pursue my Aboriginality with the way I have.
Adam was just coming out of school. I think he was 19 or 20. He wanted to study graphic design, and he came through the Aboriginal unit because I think he may have been a little bit too shy.
Look out, styling up for one of the first times when Mum started to teach me how to dress. Pink suit, don't know about that. Never lived that one down. That was a school formal where everybody else wears black. I decided to wear pink and be different. And I didn't hear the end of it. Like an accountant. What kind of a look is that?
He was unsure. He wanted to search for his own identity or his own Aboriginality. He's did a lot of research on that. Adam's been allowed to think for himself. He's an educated young man. And as his dad didn't have that opportunity. Well, I wouldn't say he did want to pass us away, but that was just how life was. See, Australia, back in the 40s, 50s, the majority of people didn't think for themselves. We were told what to do. You weren't encouraged to talk about things. If you passed as a white fellow, well, that's it. Or you could be Greek, Italian, but never Aboriginal.
My name's Adam, and I want to thank you all for coming in to the show today. We're going to learn about this very special map of Australia, which is a map of Indigenous Australia. And what that means is all of these colours on this map are very special areas for different families of Aboriginal and Islander people. And every one of these colours has an individual language. I also travel throughout Australia staying with my adopted family groups. So I have Aboriginal adopted family groups in different areas. And I'm going to talk about those areas today. We call him Yiraki. That's where it comes from, up the top of Australia. Right at the top of Northern Territory, a place called Arnhem Land. And it's a very different Aboriginal group of people to my people in Kempsey, New South Wales. Kempsey is a very special area because that's where my nana is from, my Aboriginal nana, and our people are called Dungari people. I said to my dad one day, "Dad, you must play this one because you're Aboriginal." And he said, "Well, I've never played it." And I thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to play it because I'm Koori. First of all, let me introduce you to my family. They're actually in this box. That's my mom, that's my dad. Now, quite simply, in Aboriginal community, we refer to someone who looks like my dad who's Aboriginal as blackfella. We refer to someone like my mum, who isn't Aboriginal, it's Australian, as whitefella. Up north, the Aboriginal fellows call me yellowfella. But what that's talking about, of course, is colour of skin. But it doesn't matter what the colour of your skin is, just so long as you know where you come from. We're going to be artists and we're going to be in a ceremony. I'm going to conduct the ceremony, and when you're Aboriginal in the Aboriginal community, everybody does this before the ceremony. I don't really recall talking to my parents about Aboriginal issues. It was not something that was discussed at the dinner table. And by the time I became consciously aware of Aboriginal society, I started to realise the shallowness of understanding that my parents had about Indigenous society. So there was no point ever really raising a discussion. And consequently, in years to come, we started to enter quite a few heated debates. My mother had a very limited view and understanding of Aboriginal society. I would sometimes hear adverse comments from my mother towards the stereotype of Indigenous people. She would actually make a comment towards my father in categorising him within a stereotype of the way society views Indigenous people. I started to realise that I was not going to get the answers at home. Of course that made me feel frustrated. The relationship between my parents was a roller coaster. At times it was like trying to push two magnets together. And at times I questioned why they were actually in the relationship when I look back at it now. I distinctly remember waiting in the car in Parramatta. My father would go to pick up my mother and he would have a few drinks there, and I always remember I was just waiting in the car and all I could do was fall asleep because of the sheer boredom. My parents insisted that I attained relevant academic record at school, and I'm very much appreciative of that because I've suddenly realised that you can't play the blackfellas game in the white man's uniform if you don't have some form of basic education. You grow with your father and you grow with your mother and you don't really notice skin colour. It wasn't really until the first years of high school, so it wasn't until I started hearing comments of varying degree on Aboriginality. There was groups of students in the school who were Aboriginal. Did any focus come back on me and my father? And that's perhaps when I started to question about Aboriginality, but nothing was ever said at the time.
So it's a commemorative mural. It's about the colonisation of Ashfield, which is my local area, which I live in at the moment. And it's a kind of a nice gesture of the council to want to have this commemorative mural. And also to let me paint how I wanted to paint. Circle there. So yeah. So these will be
bright and so brilliant. You know, it's just so brilliant. The colours and the.
These come up well. It'll stand out on that wall. In the beginning, as it was before anybody else arrived here, invasion, and other people arrived and started to colonise. Next one is resistance against the invasion, which is fighting against the British. And over there we got the first land granted to an Aboriginal person, claiming for Aboriginal rights from about 1948 to 1967. And this one here, which still has to have some pieces finished, talking about Ashfield today, or that the fact that Aboriginal people still live in the area. So we'll still have a public.
Yeah, it'll be quite impressive.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but
Yeah.
Adam, did Bernadette not say something to you about not using the kangaroo on the plane?
No, she didn't. She thought it would be all right.
Well, we didn't actually get
Well, we'll wait till she
permission.
comes and see what she says. But I think she felt that we shouldn't have a kangaroo there because she said Qantas are so touchy.
Yeah. Whitefellas like to read things literally. The blackfellas can feel things, yeah? You can feel it rather than have to actually have it put before you. There's frustration there, but it's subtle. It's in there. I put these little keys, little symbolic things in here. You know, there's information for whitefellas and information for blackfellas, and blackfellas will never tell all the information because that's just giving everything away. But I can tell you, the negative side to continual occupation is represented by these little circles here. See? They start together. That's because that's the circle, that's the family circle of life. And if you take careful notice, they gradually start to become further apart.
and the circles get smaller, families get smaller. But the dot, the black resilience stays strong. But all of a sudden in this one here where they talk about granting rights for Aboriginal people to become citizens, well that's a step in the right direction. The black dots start to get smaller, optimistically start coming back around, but I leave them apart because there's still a lot of work to be done. Where's that beer? Who's up for a beer?
We now have Uncle Max who's going to perform.
Horrible, me recuerda a mi país, Uruguay, porque dicen que España descubrió. No, señor, España invadió. Eso es mi modo de pensar. Yo siempre digo que tengo algo de charrúa, ¿no? El indio charrúa eran los nuestros, los aborígenes, así que no me considero española para nada. Y hace muchos años que se acabaron los nativos, le llaman allí, ¿no? No queda nada de lo que era antes Uruguay. Así que, ¿qué vamos a hacer? Es el año 2000, no se puede esperar más.
Listen to the didgeridoo. It's always been Australia Day, 26th of January every year. A great day. It should be the coming together of all nations, and I love it. I think it's terrific. Just a barbie, have a barbie and have a few drinks with my friends. Normally that's what we do. You just get with friends and have a good time.
Did you put down one?
No. But we used to have what they called Empire Day. It used to be in May, and it was to celebrate the British Empire. And they just sort of got away from that and just had Australia Day instead of Empire Day. And heaven forbid if ever we get to a republic, who knows what will happen. Nobody ever see it. I like Australia as Australia is.
But generally I spend it at Redfern at the festival, because I know the organisers of the festival, and in the past I've had a part in that festival. That's my community, so to speak. So it's a family environment, more or less. I painted a big banner for the backdrop of the stage, so it's just nice to have an input in that festival in some way each year. And I look forward to catching up with people I haven't seen for a while there.
Yavin is Australia's biggest Indigenous music festival. It takes place on Invasion Day, which a lot of people call Australia Day. And it's the biggest Indigenous music festival in the country. And the word Yavin is a Gadigal language word that means song with a beat or music. It was originally called survival, but we thought we'd change the name to a language word because it's a lot more positive.
It's ironic that this is where all the blackfellas hang out in Redfern Park, Australia Day, and also just generally people always meeting here from Redfern. This is Aboriginal land, and we're not supposed to have gates, but they leave these things up as a reminder of our industrial past. They have no place in being here. This is something that inspired one of my early paintings, one of my large paintings, which features the cannon and the Koori boys playing on it, making fun of the cannon in a phallic way, and they call it Phallus Park. But they've got this reminder of wartime history and colonial past, pointing straight at the blackfellas.
Adam is using his artwork as a way. It's almost like a diary for him. It's as he explores his own identity. I think that's going into his artwork a lot. Yeah, and it's very political, but I like his sense of humour. There's a lot of irony and there's a lot of humour in his work, which reflects his personality as well. Yeah. I think identity becomes more of an issue as you get older. You want to know, because you realise that, you know, you've forged who you are. Now you need to find out where you came from after a while. So, yeah.
They're painting a mural in Redfern there at the community centre. And the Koori fella walks past and says, "White fella painting black fella art, hey?" I was surprised myself at how quick I jumped up. You say that again? Don't you call me a white fella? I wouldn't be painting this, you know, if I wasn't who I am. Immediately he understood where I was coming from. He was very apologetic.
So here we got this little respect to the Bidjigal people. This was the traditional land of the Bidjigal part of the Gadigal people. To the blackfellas on the block. To TJ, who was murdered in the police chase.
Redfern is significant in many ways to many different people, for Aboriginal people, for white people. Most of the Indigenous, Aboriginal services for Aboriginal people have all been set up in this area. It's a meeting place and it's a place where, Aboriginal people can come and, find family or have a chat with other, blackfellas from out west. And because, it's rich in its history of being represented in political, affairs and bureaucracy and stuff like that, that it's just been known as the cultural, sort of hub of the city for Aboriginal people.
Good evening. I wasn't born here, but I love the place.
We cannot allow this government to believe that they can step in and simply say to the people of the block that this government will determine what happens on this land.
Adam's contribution to this community is that he's a type of person that sort of gets out there on the ground level and works with our kids and works with, whoever's willing to take part. And, he does that through his art and through his dance and through his music. And, he's able to sort of start from a ground level and make our kids feel good about themselves. And I think he realises that they're an important part of our future. And, and so he does work really well within the kids in the community and the people out here as well.
I felt like a change. I needed to get out of where I was living, and I asked if I could paint here. And I did a lot of cleaning up here, make it look like this, and now it's looking like a proper studio. Bumali is an urban Aboriginal artists cooperative, and many of my mentors and my inspirations have emerged from Bumali.
On Murrumbidgee River. I was reared up on this little mission houses here.
I'm also now the secretary here because I want to have an input into the organisation. By painting here, keep me involved in the operations of the Mali, and the gallery is just in there. And this is the garage space. Well, cars are a big part of where I grew up in Western Sydney, and it's just something that the boys do, being creative with the car that you have. My masking skills were honed from my first employment, which was a car spray painter. So you learn when you're a car spray painter to use masking tape to quickly mask up a car. This was inspired by the riots at Cronulla, and there was an image on the front page of the paper that had this bogan with his writing on his chest. Somebody had written for him and said, "We grew here, you flew here." Yeah? So I came up with this one. Because the clouds they're like the government. They just hang overhead and they cast a shadow. So that's why I call them the government clouds. The lines that have become synonymous with my style, and I introduced them for two reasons. One, it helped me achieve a perspective in the sky, in the big skies that we have. And the other thing is that I refer to them as my spirit lines, and that's the song lines that are passed through Aboriginal heritage, and through information is conveyed orally through the understanding of song in understanding the culture. So I introduced those as a key symbol of my spirituality, in showing that wherever you are, this spirituality is present.
If you stay connected to it here, to your purpose and in your gift, then the spirits will provide you with keeping that practice and the culture of that. It just keeps you connected to community, to your land. You need to go home and be there. When you leave, you know, this your ancestors and your spirits will look after you. And I think we need to be reminded of that sometimes, especially living in a city. That's what this reminds me of every day when I come up here and see it. It's like, never give up, keep going, keep strong, you know. When you put the ceremonies, the art, the music, the stories, the culture, what you value, the laws that you retain, your family, your kinship, all of that is coming from being Aboriginal. It's who we are. It's connected to it in a simple way.
What do you call a man who sits at your front door? Matt.
Adam's been part of our family for about 9 years now, and we met when he was painting at Penrith, and I just started to get into art and Aboriginal culture, basically. So I was part of the stolen generation, so it took a little while to sort of piece everything together and see, you know, where I belonged and what it is I can actually do and what I'm here for, basically. So it's been really amazing for my son to be with Adam, you know, take him aside and whatever it is men talk about when men talk. So it's been really helpful.
You missed it. Smashed the other day.
Off the head!
Oh!
He's very focused on their school as well, looking after their schooling, and that's a really important thing. They're not going to, if you don't have a foundation, you don't have a career, basically. So it's good.
You can come, but be sensible.
Mitchell. Mitchell plays the didgeridoo or the yidaki, and it's Adam that's actually showing him how to, how to go about all of those things. Women don't have much to do, or very little at all to do with the didgeridoo, but Adam's actually taken Mitchell over and taken him and showing him everything that he sort of needs at that particular age.
I already know that they're going to question my Aboriginality because of the colour of my skin. So I dress up in the suit to try and break the stereotype that people build up about an Indigenous person. The only reason I continue to do it is because I find it humorous, I find it comical.
One day I would wear a suit. I still haven't got one, but one day I will, until I met him. A couple of years ago during some performance in one of our company for Bangara.
Yeah, I will see you all the time there, with about 10 women around you. I think one day I want to be like that. How come he's not wearing a suit? I'm wearing the suit, but I ain't got the 10 women there. He's not wearing a suit, but he got the 10 women there. I'm thinking, I think it's time to go back to nature. I see that I have about the minimum physical features that an Indigenous person can possess. In saying that, I mean what people stereotype as Indigenous. It's something that I see other fairer-skinned Indigenous people than me really battle with in getting a sense of belonging in either community. When I tell my relatives I'm performing with Albert on this tour, I play didgeridoo, a relative says, "Do you take your boot polish with you?" So I look more like what the people think I'm supposed to look like.
I'm not far off from where he is. People judge him by the color of his skin. When I came down here, nobody knew I was Australian. Nobody knew I was an original. Everybody thought I was African. I come from up there. I come from an island called Iama. Iama is a turtleback island. I always think about home, and I keep the balance here in Sydney by doing that. Always place myself at home.
I don't exactly know where home is because we disconnected from home. I know where my grandmother come from, Burnbridge and Kempsey, but I didn't grow up there. I grew up in somewhere else's country, in Darug country, Western Sydney. But the connection then came after that, after going to stay with Jacobora in the community there.
He used to be the head dancer of Bangara.
That's where I get my first yiraki from Jacobora. Jacobora was the first remote fella that my dad had met, and it's like my dad never get to meet someone like that before because he grew up with white fellas. I want to take him to somewhere. I want to take him to Jacobora. I realise how much we've lost down here, and how much my people lost so quickly. My grandmother, she died because, from what my father explains to me, when she died in his arms, the doctor said he wouldn't come because she wasn't Catholic. He didn't come because she was black. I know she didn't have a voice, just from that story. I got one photograph of her holding my father when he was a baby, and she in a domestic outfit. So the strength comes because she's come through me in a new age where I have opportunity to actually say something without serious ramifications. Why he doesn't talk about it? Because he realizes he's stuck in a corner. He wants to say this stuff, but where he grew up, he was never allowed to say it. So that's just stayed with him all his life. He's not allowed to say it. Now, amongst his mates, if he said this stuff, they would ridicule him, just like that little child in school who doesn't get to come out. That's my dad. He's a little child that's never got to come out. When you're 64 and you've never got to let this out, that is affecting you very badly.
That's my mother. That's my mother with me. And I found her when she passed away. She just said to me, I'm just going to go and lay down for a minute. And I went to wake her up, went to get her. I think it must have been getting near tea time or something, dinner time. And I couldn't wake her up. Oh, well, I was only 9 years old. She was only 32 when she passed away. She died with pneumonia. We lived in the township itself, and we had white people all around us, and the other Aboriginals used to live on what they used to call a mission, and that was just for the Aboriginal people. And we used to see them at church, but other than that, we never sort of associated. And that's my sister there in the middle, the blonde girl. She's as fair as what I am dark. She had blonde hair, and I haven't seen her for 40 years. I don't know where she is. She's never ever wanted to get in contact, and so I can't chase her because I don't know where she is. Because once my mother passed away, well, that was it. We were just bundled up and put on a train, and that was it. Actually, I can't even remember how we got. My father stayed working on that sheep station, and he couldn't look after us, the two of us, sister and myself, so that's when we went to stay with our cousin. I didn't even know that cousin existed until we got there, and I was actually brought up when I moved to my cousin's place. I was brought up, as you might say, in the white world, and still had no problems with racial. I think I was the only Aboriginal kid in school when I moved to moved to Coolaman, but never ever had any problems. We never ever had any visitors from my mother's side of the family. I don't know if I had aunties on that side. Never even really talked about them. I don't know why, but never. So I don't know what's going on. Adam's tried chasing them up, haven't you?
Yeah.
The Morthams.
They're all still there, the mob. Big mob.
Well, of course, I would like to know my closest relatives and to actually have a home, so to speak, a home that is my home, that is my people's home, but I'm so just detached from that community because of where I've grown up that it's just like any other stranger walking into the community, really, until I say my grandmother's name and who I'm related to. It's important, it is important for me to have that, and it's something that I'll continue to investigate by making more trips up there, perhaps even residing there until I know as much about my grandmother as I can.
Who knows, who knows? If I've got relations up there, I wouldn't mind meeting them. There's got to be somebody up there somewhere. Yeah, I'm going to have to go up there. Sooner or later. Sooner rather than later while I've got time.
You should go after my exhibition. Mid-year.
For your exhibition?
After.
I go up there in the winter time.
Why not?
Because it's too bloody cold.
It's really cold anyway.
And we've got Adam back in the studio. And now breaking it down into your show, how long has it been in the lead-up like for you creating your work for the exhibition? Tell us about that process.
I've been painting solidly now for 4 months, which is a big chunk out of a fella's life, but that's the way it goes when you're trying to get this up this ladder in the art world. And the exhibition title is A Sign of the Crimes, and I've just modified the signs a little bit to put them in the context of where we're coming from Indigenous perspective in this country, and using the signs to get across little messages saying that it's time for change.
Adam's not passive, and this gallery's not passive. It's definitely going to be under people's noses. And if Adam can pull it off, I mean, it'll be a huge break, not only for Adam, but for the gallery, you know. So he's just on an edge, you know. I suppose it is a career edge.
I decided to focus my energies towards the Maori show because it's a Maori who is speaking for me at the moment and who is advocating my art and pushing my art the way it should be pushed.
I think it's a personal challenge for Adam to do something in a real big room, being free to work with scale and pushing scale in his work. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that process.
And I've seen a lot of your work. I'm actually a really big fan of your work.
Hey.
Is it the same kind of style and look?
Pretty much. You're going to see
How would you describe it for listeners that may not have seen it?
For example, I'll give you one. There's a giant white toaster, and I've chosen this one because it's symbolic of white goods. But I just like to get the balance, and it's going to be no exception for this one next Wednesday night at Maori Gallery. That's 168 Day Street in Sydney. And you're going to see Josh and two of his co-dancers from Najda pump up some beautiful TI stuff with sounds like this.
You've also got some backup with some food, some transport as well?
Definitely. Auntie Beryl's going to be handling the bush tucker for us on the night. They're going to bring a bus across to transport a mob who want to come from the block. So jump on board the Kuri bus and come across and be a part of the show.
I don't see Adam, in inverted commas, as an Aboriginal artist. You know, like I see Adam as an Aboriginal person, but as somebody using all the content that he can get together to talk about his bigger issues that he can muster up. And I think that's what's, you know, really fantastic about his work. He uses his Aboriginality very well. He uses it sort of in a humorous way, but he also uses it as a weapon. I think he's a very successful terrorist.
Padiri nagati, waramai walama benai, didrigo wagal benai, bayami daramalan. For 200 years, 218 years, camera, we've had people telling us that we don't speak our language.
Black. What does it mean for me to be black? What makes me black? Not just my skin color, From even the blackest brother can be white, black is a thought process, for me a way of life.
It's a very uncomfortable period for a relationship between myself and my father. And perhaps my father is feeling a little more uncomfortable about that by not attending my exhibition opening of recent.
Why do I paint about this and not pretty flowers or dots and sell them in copious amounts in foreign shores? Because something flows through me, and that's my grandmother. That's Corey Mortham from Kempseyburg Bridge, who gives me my Aboriginality, and my father's heritage down through there. So I'm proud of that heritage, and I speak on behalf of my poor family that never got to speak for themselves. Thank you once again for being here.
So, whilst I'm not intending to point the finger at my father in that sense, my father essentially becomes under the spotlight as well. It makes me feel like I ask my question, what am I doing here? What am I... Where is my place? Where is my... I don't really understand I relocated. Important thing is living in Redfern for me is that it's going to influence my art, because I'm already starting to think about things to paint. And what's really interesting is that whereas up until now the finger has been pointed at the prejudiced white community, now more so I'm finding the finger is going to be pointed at these black fellows here and getting them to take a look at themselves. The other day at the Redfern Community Centre was this old uncle, he turns around to me and says to me, "You're Adam Hill." And that's right. And he said, "I'm your father's first cousin." Well, I mean, a blood relative that I didn't know I had. So he told me who I'm related to up in Kempsey. I'll go back with my father, hopefully, to introduce him to the extended family, whom he doesn't know exist either. And it will be like, this is your life, for my dad and myself. If I look at the path that I've chosen to walk upon, it's obviously balanced towards my Indigenous heritage, because it seems that whenever I vent some frustration through my art, whenever I choose to perform as an Indigenous person, then I feel like I'm riding a wave. I feel like in the surf, you catch the wave and you get propelled. So who else can it be but my black spirits?